Hey everyone, it's Jackie from NowThis, and today I'm so excited to have Amber Whittington, Instagram and YouTube influencer turned activist who just reaches such a powerful audience right now, especially when we're talking about elections and systemic change and cultural shifts. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know we have quite a lot of unique conversations to unpack today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been a really interesting time, just in general on social media, to see the impact that influencers have and the platform that they're responsible for to literally influence their audience, which, on Instagram and YouTube tends to be pretty young, which I think, we have in common with you with NowThis having young viewers as well. But there's a lot of power in that. I think you and I, briefly spoke about the idea of, right, politicians and local leaders being the representative for their communities, where influencers are really the same thing, representatives for young people, because you're dealing with them every day and talking to them every day and, have much more of an intimate relationship. So what's the power to you when it comes to, talking to your viewers and connecting with the people that are following you so closely?
I'm sorry, could you ask me? Shut up, go. Sorry, my dog. Could you ask me that one more time? I think her bark drowned out your question.
The dogs always want to have the spotlight the second we go on air.
Yeah, somebody in my hallway.
I just think, it's so important that we talk about the power of influencers right now when we're talking about, systemic issues, their responsibility to be advocating for your audience. So what have you been seeing with, your viewers reaching out to you and saying, hey, this is what I feel and this is what I think, and I'm trusting you to kind of pass that message along?
Yeah, for sure. I think that they know that I have been a person that has spoken up about issues that we face, especially the Black community or the LGBTQ community. One of the things that I've been speaking out about is that the fact that if you do talk about social issues or LGBT content or being a person of color on certain platforms like YouTube, you have suffered over the years. And for myself, because I have spoken up, it has made me not brand friendly. So it has made a lot of other influencers scared to talk about certain subjects because they're either scared to say the wrong thing and get canceled, or they're scared that they won't be as brand friendly anymore and lose their advertising, whether it's through monetization on their videos on the platform or from brand deals. So, but what I am seeing right now is that more influencers are stepping up and speaking out about things, even though that has been their hesitation in the past. So it has made me a lot more, thinking about just a lot more positive about the future and the fact that people are not afraid to use their platforms now and speak out because they can make a difference and people are listening to them.
And I think what's an interesting bonus to your role is that, leaders are listening to you and looking to you for advice of how can they connect to their communities, how can they better understand young people. And I understand that you've had, hopeful candidates reach out to you and say, what can we do better? How can we address, the people who feel like they're not being heard? So what's your best advice to have those conversations? I guess first, what are these leaders asking? What do you think they don't understand yet that we need to still kind of bridge the gap between generations?
Yeah, I think it's awesome that they're doing that. And I think there needs to be more of that, because if you think about it, a lot of the leadership especially in the political realm are of the older generation, and they're used to doing things the old school way, or they may be a little bit further removed from the pain or from the ideals and the opinions of the younger generation now. And so reaching out to influencers that care enough to pay attention or they call themselves activists or are activists with what they do and the type of content they put out is really smart, because they're bridging the gap. They're saying, hey, let me talk to these people that care to use their platform, see what matters to them and different things that they are passionate about and things that they want to see change. And let me try to understand that so that I can, have that in mind when I am on the board of city council and we have some meetings, or have that in mind when I'm sitting in the state assembly or congressional hearings. And so I think it's awesome, and I feel blessed to be a person that was able to like sit in front of these people and really drill them and ask them some questions, but also allow them to know that I am someone that wants to be where you are right now. So not only do I want to, share this information and make it digestible and be a bridge, I also want to know what's happening in there, and so that I can literally take all of this and that I know from this younger generation, and the pain and hurt from communities that need change, and bring that in if I'm ever able to be in those rooms, or just, support the next candidate that I feel like will represent those opinions and ideals of them. So I think it's really awesome. And I just feel blessed that I was able to do it. And I think that more politicians need to think about that when running or while they're in office as well.
What kind of questions have you been asked by either hopeful candidates or people who are already in leadership positions? What do you think are some of the top questions they've been coming to you with?
Really, it's like, what do young people care about? What is it going to take to get them to vote? What are they paying attention to? And literally, like I was saying, just adopt those ideals or the cares of the younger generation, and wanting to just motivate them to want to learn more and to get out there and use their voice to vote.
How do we know then when that partnership is sincere? If we see influencers have a Skype with someone or they take a photo with them, how do we know that, those conversations are actually meaningful and beyond just a photo op, or, just to get in the feeds where someone might have, like yourself, hundreds of thousands of followers?
Yeah, and I think that is like a real issue at hand that could really happen. And I think it's really about us doing the background work of that person and seeing if they are genuine with their actions that they have done while being in that seat, or if they're looking for re-election, or if they're just trying to find a way to get on the good side of people. I think it's really up to us to do that background work, but also that just is going to show us that this person shouldn't represent us, whether it's like in a certain district or in our city, and that we might need to push for a new leadership. And I think either way, it'll be a good thing, because it'll show that we need someone that really understands the community, really understands where the pain is coming from, where we need to change things. So yeah, that's the other thing that I really want to push for, is for people to not only show up at the polls for the presidential candidate, but also for everything within their city. The city councilors, district attorneys, judges. These are people in the board of education. We vote for these people that make the decisions for where we live. And so it's really time for the younger generation to understand that and say, if I want things to change, I need to make sure that I'm paying attention to the person that is showing up for me to make, to decide what I would want, who makes decisions for me in the city that I live in.
So do you think that the role of an influencer, for some people, the influencer word is kind of a dirty word. They don't want to be associated with it because it, might be associated with not so much activism or driving for cultural shift. But it seems like that's changed over the last, especially couple of weeks, with the Black Lives Matter movement, and kind of expanding people's platforms to take a stance on certain issues. So do you think that, the word influencer is changing?
Yeah, I think that people are still going to have like a weird, idea about it because of that. Because when they, the same as activists are in that category, it's the same as influencers that are influencing you to go and check out this brand or have a platform that, people are addicted to for some reason. And a lot of those are not great reasons. And they're probably on the more controversial side. And then and people pay attention because of that. But I am seeing a shift change. And so I really think that it's on the brands, it's on us as humans to, see the people that are really that are really genuine, really care, and support them and amplify their voices. So it's really on us to kind of change that culture within influencing world, the social media world, and start supporting those that have a real voice and really want to push for change.
Well, I really was excited to have you kind of strategically for this last week of Pride, because you are just such an incredible advocate in the LGBTQ space and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think there's an interesting conversation around representation in the influencers world as well. We're starting to see much more advocacy, with people highlighting body positivity and people of color in the LGBTQ space with so many great voices. That primarily, I think, for a long time was only dominated by white voices. So how do you kind of spread that responsibility equally and kind of hold white influencers accountable to say, hey, like, we're in this together and we need you to also lift up our platforms?
Yeah, and it really is exactly the last thing you said, lifting up our platforms. Follow more people of color, amplify their voices, share their stories, share their videos, comment under them. And also, like, one of the small things that I just said on to a younger audience the other day is when you are a part of a trend or a dance challenge, like, make sure you're tagging the creator of that. Right? A lot of times, like, the biggest dance challenges on TikTok came from a young Black woman, and she completely didn't get credit for any of the dance challenges and the trends that happened. So it really is making sure that the Black creator of those things is acknowledged and given credit. So I think that's definitely a part of it.
Why is that credit, the first stepping stone to the bigger picture of things? What does the significance of credit mean, especially on, TikTok or something where you probably don't even think twice about how it started?
It's really just that right now we need, like, in general, we need to amplify Black voices in general, and that just doesn't happen. And we need to do better within the LGBT community as supporting our Black trans women, and because they are the reason why we have the rights that we have today. And then we need to do better at in supporting and amplifying our voices within the Black community, but we also need other people to do that. Right now is a time for us to listen to people and listen to the community and listen to the hurt and the pain. So all of our allies, I challenge you to, change your feed up a little bit, follow more Black creators, and like I said, amplify their voices, share them, because it's necessary, and we need our allies to help us push this movement forward so we can create real change.
What's the danger of having, a non-diverse feed, especially for, TikTok's audience is incredibly young and incredibly easily influenced. So why, especially on apps like TikTok or social platforms like Instagram?
Because Black creators have been looked over so many times and not given the credit that they deserve. And this shows you, I mean, I've been on YouTube for a very long time, and, and like I was saying earlier, if you talk about social injustices, if you're a person of color and if you're gay, all of those separately, you can struggle on certain platforms, right? And then I happen to be a person that does all of them. So it's really hard to get, to survive as a creator if you're not advertiser friendly or if you're not brand friendly, and it takes this funding to create content so that you can keep your voice alive. And so a lot of times these platforms don't do their job at making sure that they push these voices and they support these voices. And I think if we think about what we just talked about, this dance challenge, TikTok should have been pushing her and allowing her, like the creator of that challenge, to be on the main page or the explore page or the recommended page to show people, hey, this creator created this huge, dance challenge or trend, let's show her some appreciation. Let's give her some credit. And so I do challenge not only people to make sure their feeds look different, but I also challenge these corporations to make sure that they're supporting Black creators.
You mentioned something in the beginning of this conversation about not being brand friendly. Do you find that anybody who is within the LGBTQ space or the Black space of content creation has a harder time getting supported by brands or getting supported through other platforms, simply because of identities they might embrace or communities that they're within? Is that part of the bigger picture as well, of holding brands accountable for their inclusiveness?
Yeah, there are a lot of people within those industries or within those categories that you just talked about that do really well. And there are some people that suffer. I think if you think of LGBTQ influencers, one of the things that we try to challenge corporations is that we are LGBTQIA plus all year. And you know what I'm saying? They come and they show up for Pride Month and they come to try to support us and they give us the dollars for Pride Month. But then what happens after that? And it's really just showing these brands that, we need assistance all year. These organizations that they may donate to that for that month, let's say GLAAD or LGBT centers, need support all year. So I think it's really just like challenging these companies to say, don't just use us for this month. We need support all year long.
And what's your call to action then to influencers on that same idea that, the Black Lives Matter movement is strong and it's just crowding our feeds right now, but what about after the election and next year around this time? Do influencers now have to learn how to keep their feed consistent with activism?
I think if that's their passion, I wouldn't push anyone to do it if they don't feel good about it or if they're not knowledgeable, because then sometimes it might go the opposite way that their intention was or that anyone would want that to be. I've just been encouraging a lot of influencers to just not be afraid of what I was talking about earlier, cancel culture. And I just want them to know that it's okay to speak up about what's happening right now, because either way, just speaking up about the truth doesn't hurt you. There's not much that you can be wrong about with what's happening right now. And also, I think we need to start challenging ourselves as a culture, whether we are just the consumers of content, and start looking at how we look at things or reply to things. And like I said, I like to move from cancel culture. I would love us as a society to move from cancel culture or to accountability culture, right? Start getting people to understand why things are wrong and why the word that they said or the sentence that said, why that's wrong or harmful to others, and really take that in and understand that, and then just and so that we can actually get people to change within and completely understand, instead of just get mad and say, oh, people canceled me and now I'm just going to go away for a little while and I'm going to come back as the same person and do the same thing again. So we really just got to hold people accountable for change.
Accountability is an interesting thing, especially when we look at the contrast between influencers and celebrities. And you and I briefly discussed the other day how the relevance of the two have kind of shifted. And we're seeing kind of videos of activism from celebrities. I've seen many videos get mocked or not not really having the impact they may have had 2 or 3 years ago. So before we have to head out, I want to just talk about how that shift has happened and why especially people in power need to realize that their focus, if you believe their focus, should be more on influencers now, who may be a more accurate face of change and demands that represent their fans rather than celebrity fans.
No, I'm with you on the mocking of things. And really, okay, so let's take I Take Responsibility video as an example, as well as the march in West Hollywood for Pride, right? The problem is like a lot of these, you know, I don't know, organizations or whatever, they have good intentions, but they just don't go about it the correct way. So if there was somebody on the board of I Take Responsibility that was like, probably, I don't think that they had enough Black people on the board to say, I think that this is coming off the wrong way, or this, let's do it this way to come off this way, right? And the same as WeHo, right? West Hollywood is huge for the gay community, obviously, but when you look at their board, there is one person of color, and they don't do anything for the community. And so people of color are not represented in West Hollywood, where we show up and we spend a lot of money. And if the board in West Hollywood would have actually got together with some of the Black LGBT activists in the area and said, how do we do this properly, it would have been successful. But because they didn't do that, they got a lot of backlash, and they had to cancel the event and completely and apologize for that. And then a new movement came in called All Black Lives Matter, which includes the LGBT community, which bridged the two together. So it's like, if they understand to listen to the leaders of organizations, and it's not even influencers. There's so many organizations out there that you can tap into. Build Power, the Black Lives Matter movement, Color Change. There's so many that within that area that you can say, hey, we want to make a difference. We want to put out content and we have good intentions. Are we going about this properly? How do we build in your ideals so that we can literally be a part of the movement and not shift the movement away from what we're trying to accomplish?
Well,
so it is that. Just include Black leaders in the conversation. Put them on the boards. Have them in the rooms so that we can make sure things go right correctly.
Right. And, that level of what's good intentions and what's tone deaf can be, it's a very thin line, even when we saw for Juneteenth, the Snapchat filter come out. And it's just the foundation of the issues and the theme of it is there, but you're right, it in a way can reflect who was in that room to make these decisions in the first place.
Exactly.
Well, I know you and I could chat hours on this, but unfortunately we only have a 20-minute window. And I really just want to thank you for joining me for this conversation. And, if there's any other last bit of info you want to give, or a call to action to your fellow influencers of all communities, I'd love to hear what that is, especially when we have so many states going to the polls and we have November coming up as well, what the call to action is to be informed and a responsible influencer.
Yeah. Okay. So a few things. I definitely would love to challenge everyone to make sure that they are following some political leaders, especially within your city. Follow your mayor or any person that you feel like definitely represents your ideals. Support them. See what's going on, whether it or not. If you feel like you want to vote for them next time, just see what they're talking about, see what's happening, and pay attention to upcoming, possible leaders that could take that position next that you feel like does represent your ideals. And the other thing is really, okay, so it is Pride Month. So I do want to say we do have some things to be proud about, and I want to bring light to the legislation that just recently passed, which is a ban against discrimination on sexual orientation and gender identity. That is huge. And so we have had a win, and we have still a lot more work to do, and it's with the LGBTQIA community and healthcare. So I want to applaud that, but also know that we have more work to do. And just I want everyone to feel positive. I feel positive. And so the way that I want people to feel right now is that they have a voice, and that it's important that they should use it. So register to vote and just pay attention to what's happening so that you feel good and feel confident showing up at the polls, knowing that you know what's happening and that you're going to make a difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm excited to see what you're doing the rest of this year. Really just appreciate you taking time to chat with us and talk about all these important influencer issues and concepts that we are just seeing circulate nonstop. So again, thank you very much.
Of course, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.